Welcome to Hameen Loyal. This is Eric Grissom.
And I'm Dan Johnson. Eric and I will be rewatching the iconic Twin Peaks from the pilot through the return and everything in between.
If this is your first time watching, or if you're a longtime fan, you can watch along with us as we dive deep into the strange and wonderful world of Twin Peaks.
We live inside a dream.
Today on a very special episode of Meanwhile, I am talking to Richard Green. You will probably know Richard Green from his performance as the magician in the David Lynch film Mulholland Drive. You may also know his voice from a number of video games and cartoons. He's Professor Hugo Strange in the Batman cartoon. He was in Condemned 2. He was in the Dexter video game. He was in Mass Effect 2. He's been StarCraft 2. A lot of 2s going on here. But he's also an actor. He's a musician. He is the producer of I Don't Know Jack, the documentary about Jack Nance. Richard and I are going to talk a little bit about that film, as well as the director, the writer, the editor, and he supplied the music for the Catherine Coulson documentary, I Know Catherine, the Log Lady, which is available today. Richard and I talked for a very long time, so much so that some of our conversation is going to be in an extended special edition episode on our Patreon. So if you enjoyed our conversation, then check out our Patreon. All right, without further ado, let's get into the talk. Richard, welcome to Meanwhile. It's so nice to have you on.
Meanwhile, it's very nice to be here.
Yes, and as I can see, I was going to ask, how are you? But it looks like you're doing quite fine. It's a beautiful environment. For the people that can't see this image, there are rainbows behind Richard. There are birds in the sky. It is a beautiful looking Los Angeles. Yeah, your humble host here is talking to you from a dreary New Jersey early evening.
Hey, I'm a Brooklyn boy. I know how beautiful New Jersey can be, especially in the summer. To
start it off, can you tell me what drew you to Catherine, to telling Catherine's story?
So, it goes back to the first film that Next Step Studios produced, which was I Don't Know Jack.
Next Step Studios presents a unique documentary about a real character, Jack Nance, the actor who became a cult icon with ERASERHEAD.
Right? The unsolved life and homicide of ERASERHEAD star Jack Nance was the official title. Actually, the official title is David Lynch presents a Next Step Studios production, I Don't Know Jack, the unsolved life and homicide of ERASERHEAD star Jack Nance.
Now that just jumps off a marquee.
Yes. It has to be one of the digital scrolling marquees, but yes, why not? Star Wars did it, right? That film came about. I was about to direct my first feature, which is called 7 Year Zigzag, which I highly recommend that you get a chance. If you liked Catherine, you can see the antecedents of the style and the music. By the way, can I make just a note up front? I contributed a lot of music to I Know Catherine, the Log Lady, but the great majority of it, I think, is contributed between the three of us. Cody Farwell, who's just a brilliant musician, bass player, composer, slide guitar player. He plays on both my album and he composed music directly for the film. And Jake Blue Note, who's produced my album and worked with Cody on the music for this. So it's really three of us are the composers with, a couple of classical guys thrown in there. Yeah. So
yeah, it's fantastic. And that's the credits. That's your song as well. I'm assuming playing over the credits is very beautiful.
You realize that it's Rebecca Del Rio singing it.
Some believe that our behavior segregates those who pass the pearly gates or end up somewhere else. Whatever comes when we're through.
Obviously, you're both in Mulholland Drive and in that scene, but was she a friend as well?
She was a friend. We were drawn together in a day. Both of our scenes took a couple of hours each to shoot. It was in one theater. Nobody had seen what I had done. David hadn't seen the scene before. I hadn't seen David in, a few years since Jack Nance's memorial. Had I seen David at all? When he called the studio, I thought it was about, I don't know, Jack, except they were looking for, it turned out he was looking for somebody he used to know who was real good with words and was a magician, a story I had told David years before. Anyway, the next day when this 23-year-old intern, Chris Levins, just graduated from Penn State, loved Eraserhead. He found out we were talking to Catherine about this project. He came into us and said, that would make a great documentary, the story of Jack Nance. He was fascinated by Jack Nance's story. And after the memorial, almost everybody at the memorial came to my studio in West Hollywood, and we all drank and got crazy loaded and played music all night, right? It turns out, I just found out this recently that through Kimmy, that David and the cast who knew Jack all went to a Denny's or some Copper Penny or something and had a meal. So there were two memorial wakes going on simultaneously. But when this 23-year-old kid came in the next morning after hearing that we were talking to Jack's ex-wife and, ex-widow, right? He said it would make a great documentary. And all I could think about was, get everybody who was here for the funeral over for a party and we'll put up a camera and we'll talk about Jack. Perfect. That's the documentary, right? So I said, yeah. And we all decided, because I was about to direct my first feature. Donna Dubain, who had been in Circus with Catherine, this theater company, revolutionary up in San Francisco in the 60s, late 60s, which is just before I got there, and started another theater company, which then encompassed Circus. Donna Dubain and David Lindemann, who directed the Circus, were both executive producing Jack, the documentary, and were worried that I was going to split my focus if I tried to do Zigzag and Jack. So when I proposed that this 23-year-old kid who proposed this idea out of the blue over coffee get to direct this, because he didn't know Jack, and what are we going to show him, right? All the people we're going to create. This 23-year-old kid's going to interview David Lynch in his studio, his idol, 6 months after getting out of college. It was such a cool idea. I just thought that was a really promotable notion in and of itself,
Yeah, and with the title, I Don't Know Jack, right, it lends itself to a discovery type of film.
Exactly.
So that's great.
It was part of a whole wonderful series of events that happened that involved me and Eraserhead and David Lynch and Catherine and Donna Dubain and Mulholland Drive all came together. We made this movie, I Don't Know Jack. I made 7 Years Zigzag, which is about the beginnings of the new swing movement in the early 80s in LA and London.
New York, 1978. It was summer late, almost fall. We played Shakespeare in the park by day. By night, I gave it my all. I risked everything I'd got to get a movie shot.
Right. A lot of archival footage, very interesting style. You'll see it. Many things about Catherine are refined but reminiscent of 7 Years Zigzag. We made both movies. We went to Cannes with both movies into the market, but our band played the opening of the Cannes film market in 2001. So I had a 14-piece new swing band behind me made up of European players that a friend of mine, a keyboard player, brilliant composer, Alan Reeves, had put together because he lives in the south of France, with me up front, our guitarist Kenton Youngstrom being the musical director, 4 national swing dance champs. And it was the year that Mulholland Drive premiered at Cannes. And the next day, I swear to God, the next day after this performance, I'm walking through the parking lot, a shortcut through the Carlton parking lot to get to the Croisette to go have a cup of coffee. And I run into David Lynch, who I'd run into in Tiny Nailers. I'd run into him at Deluxe Film Labs. We run into each other in odd places. And I say, hey, were you here last night? Did you see the performance, right? And he went, no, I wasn't. And he said, are you coming to the premiere? And I said, you mean of Mulholland Drive? And he said, yeah. And he gave me this number. So just by chance. And so me and Donna got little pins and got to go to the premiere, walk the red carpet, the limousines driving a block, the red carpet with millions of photographs, with us in the last limousine. It was pretty great. It was really great. So I had a great experience with I Don't Know Jack, and we sold I Don't Know Jack on to davidlynch.com. It was one of the most innovative websites in the world. And so all in all, it was a wonderful experience in that world. The day that Catherine died, which we're just approaching here in September, right? I got a call from Donna Dubain telling me that Catherine was at home in Ashland, that she had died that day, that morning, that I knew Donna had been planning to go up and then missed her ride up and had responsibilities here and couldn't go up and then felt they weren't going to let her up, but that everybody that was in the house had signed a $6 million penalty NDA, that if they disclosed anything, they would owe $6 million, right? No photographs were to be taken, no video was to be taken, nothing, right? House full of family and crew, right? Filming this epic event in the last epic event in this person's life, one that could only have happened because all of her friends and all of her family gave it to her. So when Donna said this to me, that they'd signed this and that she died within days, I was like, oh my God, that's a movie. We're not going to have a party and point the camera around. That's a movie, but what a fucking story to do. Her last act in life is to finish a fictional role created by maybe the greatest American artist of the 21st and the 20th century.
Margaret, what can I do for you?
Hawk. I'm dying.
I'm sorry, Margaret.
You know about death. That it's just a change, not an end. Hawk. It's time.
You get the idea to do it about 10 years ago, right? That's 2015.
Exactly. Yes.
You do a Kickstarter for this film about 7 years ago, which, by the way, your first film is 7 Year Zigzag, and it's 7 years from the Kickstarter to this release. So I don't know if there's anything to that, but
yes.
With the idea, did you not officially start until about 7 years ago, or has it just been going on for the last 10 years since you had that thought?
It's been going on for the 10 years. The first thing is, wow, this is a really interesting idea. I knew that she had filmed her last scenes, dying of the disease. The character was dying of the same disease that she was dying of, and she died 4 days later, right? I think I wrote somewhere, I don't know if we use it in any of we should, because it's the character was born on the set of Eraserhead, conceived on the set of Eraserhead, born on the set of Twin Peaks Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot, and died in Season 3. I saw it. I just saw it. That much I saw at that moment. I was doing voiceover, looking to get another project off the ground, a project which I hope to make if Catherine is a success on a level that at least all of our debts are paid and I get a couple of dollars back so I can do another project. It could be History of Cool. It should be History of Cool, which is just, we'll talk about another time. I don't want to sidetrack us, but I was looking to fund History of Cool. I was constantly looking for voiceover work, auditioning. The voiceover business was changing dramatically at this point, going almost completely non-union and, outside of traditional casting directors and agency relationships, and, not nearly as lucrative or as least time consuming as it used to be. So, but I kept working and gratefully so. I've done really, really well. I'm really grateful for every aspect of my career. I feel really, really lucky. and I work hard, so I don't feel guilty about being really lucky. But I'll take all the luck I can get, right?
You touched on something. This is a movie. Your film is a movie that is about Catherine's life, but it's also about her death. The two of these things go hand in hand. When you know that you want to do this project, like, how do you approach her family? How do you bring them into to do a film that's so personal about both life and death?
Remember, this is the first day, the day she died, right? Is I have this idea. It's not like I did. It wasn't 2 days later. It was that minute. She's telling me on the phone. I don't say anything to her about it. This is Donna, who's broken up, who was so close to Catherine, and who felt, in some ways, unsatisfied with herself that she wasn't able to break away from her life here to get up there and be there at the end for Catherine, because Catherine had been there so many times for her. It became an idea. Let's think this through. And then I started thinking about it just from a producer's point of view, because you have to be extremely practical if you want to produce anything in this world. You have to dream crazy big that you're going to have the resources, but you got to be really practical about how you're going to spend them and where you get them from. And I was doing okay, but not great. I didn't have a lot of extra cash to invest. So I think one of the things that appealed to me about the project is I knew that Twin Peaks was coming out and it was going to be on Showtime. And I thought, wow, season 3 is going to be out. Every network in the world is going to want this movie that tells the story, behind the scenes story of what's happening. And there's going to be a built-in audience. The people are going to want to see this. I'm going to get a deal right away. This is a great idea. We did, I don't know, Jack. We got Lynch credibility. I'll get an interview with David. I'll talk to Donna. We'll figure it out. We'll go, right? The first thing, I talked to Donna maybe a couple of weeks in, or maybe a month in, and Donna felt it was kind of early, and we had to talked about it a lot. And at some point over the next couple of weeks or months, I convinced her that we should at least talk to Jenny Sullivan, who was also close to Catherine and who was a producer, and that we should then have a conversation with Bill Haugsy. And Jenny Sullivan was very close to Zoe and would be the entree to Zoe and to the family if she accepted the concept and the approach that I wanted to take and how I wanted to do it. At that point, early on, because I had such wonderful artistic success with a 23-year-old, passionate, very smart graduate, just recent graduate from film school, Chris Levins, I thought, let's get a young woman in to do I Know Catherine the Log Lady, and she can helm it, and we'll support her. And, what a great idea. Catherine would have loved that. So I don't really have a sense of the next year and a half, but at the end of 2017, right, we had gone through many different changes. The first thing I think I did at that point, once Jenny and I had met and I sort of had her imprimatur that this would be okay and the family would be interested in seeing this, but we don't know about Zoe. We'll see. Talk to me some more, basically. At that point, I contacted Bill Rausch, who was the artistic director of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival at the time, and had been virtually installed by Catherine, right? She was such a strong influence on Ashland after 10 or 12 seasons that when it came to find the new artistic director, she lobbied heavily for Bill and his husband, Christopher Liam Moore, both of whom just had a tremendously wonderful impact on the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in his time there, so much so that he was stolen away from their idyllic home in Ashland, Oregon, to the big bad New York City by the Perelman Center for Performing Arts at the World Trade Center, which is, I think potentially one of the great art communities being built there now, with all the diversity of media and the diversity of performances that they have going on there. It's just wonderful. So anyway, he gave me, permission to use all of their videos. They have videos of every show Catherine did. She was in over 80 productions, right? So we had a lot of material to go through to find the story that we could tell in film form, in a motion picture form. And from there, at one point down the line, I had gotten involved. Bill Haugsy had gotten involved, the editor, who was close to Catherine, is the second person in her life that we explore. He opens himself up.
That's a big part of your film as well, as the people in her life and the men, and they're not always treat her well. His story is fascinating and introspective, and he has a wonderful arc.
He wanted to direct it and kind of challenged me on this at one point. He wanted us both to direct a 5-minute thing and then we'd decide. And I'm going, no. First of all, I don't have time. Right. And second of all, I want somebody else to direct it. But if you, I was concerned. I really have a tremendous amount of respect for Bill and I like him. But I was concerned that his point of view was going to be limited to what the story was because his point of view was so powerful and his story alone was so powerful. But he really wanted to do this. And so to sort of please Donna and keep the project moving forward, I agreed that I would support him by being crew and putting up a couple of bucks, and we would shoot some interviews. And some of the interviews that he shot for the film are in our picture, right? A couple, are in the picture, and that's why he's credited as one of the interviewers. And he went away to cut it, and he came back, and he had decided for whatever reason that he couldn't do it. Not that he couldn't do it, but that it wasn't the right story, at least the way he was seeing it at that point.
Yeah, and I imagine he's probably just too close to it, right? It would be hard to find that distance. I mean, I'm glad it worked out the way, nothing against him, and I'm sure he would have done an interesting, unique, but you're the right person, I think, for this, and to see him in it as a subject and not the one, doing the directing.
And I think the bravest person in the whole movie in some ways is Bill. And, there was a moment when he decided that there wasn't a movie here and he was convincing Donna. I was so adamant that I was not going to let this go until after I'd interviewed David Lynch. I'm sure that the challenge to the point of view that I wanted to take fueled me a little bit more than I imagined it might have. I'll tell a story here that I don't think I've told before, but is worth telling. On I Don't Know Jack, the producer was Valerie Phipps Wilson, V. Phipps Wilson, who is in Eraserhead. She was in Circus with Catherine, and she was a bit of a mad woman. She was English born. She was fabulously funny. The reason I know David and Catherine, the reason I'm involved with any of this stuff is because when I was 20, after being 3 years in San Francisco and starting a theater company with many of the remnants of Circus, I was worried that if I didn't leave San Francisco and go hitchhiking around Europe for a year, do the hippie hula or something, that had no name. This idea that you went and challenged yourself against the world. You just, what do you go? What happens? What do I do? A year on the road, just with my guitar and my wits and what's going to happen. And I decided I was going to do it. I saved $600 that summer, right? Doing improvised verse in the streets and doing the fairs with Jack Nance and Wayne Grace, who was in Mulholland Drive as well as me and also Dances with Wolves.
So don't play it for real until it gets real.
I came down to LA and a couple of days with my mom, and then a couple of days with my dad. We all went to the racetrack. I'd never been. My father used to like the racetrack. He's told me about this thing called an exacta. You put $2 on this horse and $2 on this horse, and then you flip it. And so, so I bet $2 on 3 and 6 and $2 on 6, 3, and I won $508. And then I put $5 on 7-1 and $5 on 1-7, and another $108. And I took the $16 and I bought my sister and brother and my father a drink, and I took the $600. Now I had double the money, and I put it in my pocket, and I bought a plane ticket, a round trip, open year end plane ticket on British Airways for $300. And I stayed in LA for an extra week. And because I stayed in LA an extra week, Donna Dubane and Frankie Phipps Wilson came down from San Francisco to audition for a brand new theater that was opening up in Santa Monica called the Mayfair Music Hall, that was built by the Magic Castle people, right? This guy, Bill Larson, who ran the It's Magic show, they had the Magic Castle. It was designed by John Shrum, who was Johnny Carson's art director for 30 years. And here they replicated a British style music hall with Bernard Fox, this British, who became a British television star, American television star later, sitting up in a booth right above the stage. Picture Mulholland Drive, and you got the blue lady up in that booth right above the magician. That's Bernard Fox, right? So I get hired. I audition right at the last minute. They see me and they convince me to not go to Europe, put my trip off, stay and get variety reviews and Hollywood, make money. And Frankie Phipps Wilson from Eraserhead also got hired to play Bubbles, this, foul limerick rhyming English wench, hysterical. And we hung out up on Beechwood Canyon where Jack and Catherine had an apartment and where David was because they were making Eraserhead.
David Lindemann introduced David Lynch to Jack Nance and myself. And David asked me if I would be interested in playing the nurse who gives Henry and Mary their baby. And then he cast Jack Nance, who was my husband. So we kind of came as a team. And I got a chance to work on the movie because we didn't shoot the scene with the nurse until the very end. And then we wound up not shooting it at all because we really ran out of money.
So I don't drink. I've never been a drinker. The reason I probably worked with David is that David would come down to the Mayfair Music Hall with Jack and drink on my drink ticket because I got like free drinks at night to some extent. I don't know what limit. And they would come. And I don't know that they came 50 times or they came 3 times. I don't remember. But I remember them still there, drinking, me doing improvised verse on a stage with red curtains, with a balcony over my shoulder, doing this large act. Later became something else, right?
We were talking about family, and when you're dealing with creating stuff, David Lynch would talk about the art life and committing to art. And it's clear, like from your movie, that Catherine was committed to her work. But she was also committed to her family, and her daughter, Zoe. And when you're making things, sometimes family and art can be at odds. When we talk about someone dying, we often, your film is not just honoring the dead, it's honoring the dying. And that's something that everybody goes through. I lost my own father, I lost my stepfather, and there are times when somebody's at the end, when it's like, how do we grant their last wishes, even if we think it could do them harm? And that becomes a part of the film with she wants to be in Twin Peaks, but all this, so there's a lot of that back and forth. Yeah. And I'm just curious from your own perspective, having done this movie and seeing, and I don't want to spoil the ending because everybody should watch it, but it's triumphant and touching and moving. But did this experience of making this movie change the way you look at how we honor people that are dying?
Oh man. I mean, honestly, this film has completely changed my life in so many ways. I mean, I'm the same guy, but just who I am and how I see myself and the world and what's happened over the course of 10 years. I mean, we're literally, August 26th is real close to September 28th, right? And my parents, both of them, passed suddenly, not unexpectedly in some ways, but suddenly. So there was no really confronting those stories. I had developed a business years before with a Jungian therapist named Dr. Richard Friedman and my father, Harold Green, who was a journalist before becoming an inventor, called Video Biographies. And it was kind of based on the idea of Shakespeare's Seven Ages of Man and passages by Gail Sheehy, where you sort of look at these stages of life that we all go through, whatever way we go through them. And the concept that we have more in common than we have different, even in terms of our DNA, one to another, even to other species. There's so much more in common, right? So we spent a couple of years developing a modular script format that if you had someone fill out a questionnaire about, just specific questions about their life, that we could then construct a script where basically you sit someone down, you relax them, talk about their ancestors a little bit where they weren't involved. And then you basically take them through their life and let them react to it because you know what's coming, right? And so what you want to do is you want to remind them. I'm not interested in having the person I'm interviewing saying the name of their father. I'm interested in what they called their father because I can put the name on a picture on the screen, right? It's about getting to the humanity, the deep stuff, because you can carry the narrative. It was a very, very interesting process, and it informed a lot of what we've done here with Catherine. I didn't do that with each of these interviews, but almost every interview we did was over an hour long, easily. And the reason is because I knew that in order to get to the stuff that was important about their relationship with Catherine, their relationship to themselves because of Catherine, the stuff that we were all going to care about, I had to know who they were. They had to feel that I knew who they were to give me that story. So those interviews were in depth. There was a wonderful interview with David that's just about David, and Kyle that's just about Kyle, and setting up what their influences were and what their life was about. It was about creating an environment where the stuff that was important about Catherine could be found. And every interview informed what I could talk about on the next.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to hear, because there's such an intimacy to your interviews that I was going to ask you whether all of these subjects were already friends of yours, or if people you've worked with, or you're approaching them for the first time. And now that makes sense that you went through this process with them. Maybe not exactly as you did before, but yeah, the interviews that you managed to grab are fascinating. How did you decide who you were going to include, who you were not going to include? Like, I imagine that would be almost a daunting task with all the people that she's worked with through the theater and everywhere else.
I'm not sure who said this, but I think it's true that art is defined by its limitations. You give a guy a 2 foot by 4 foot canvas and a can of orange and a can of yellow paint. It's unlimited what he can do, but it's limited to those colors and that piece of canvas, right? So by your limitations. And if you're moving your body to music, it's usually dance, or choreographed martial arts in a movie, whatever. But my point is that, we had a very limited amount of money. So we had a wish list of people that we wanted to talk to. That a lot of this too, don't forget, early on, I hooked up, Jenny became an advocate of what we were doing and our producer. So all the people that she knew, Catherine knew, and that she felt that they had a part of her story, she could get me access to many of those people, like Fred Elms. I started with the interview with David, and that is such a powerful interview. For me, it remains. This one day, the guy that we were shooting with at the time, Ruben Aronson, couldn't make it, and he sent Eric Zimmerman to shoot. And this guy just caught David in just this beautiful light in this beautiful moment, right? And
how much of that did you shoot?
Over about an hour 20.
He's such a fascinating storyteller. You could just get lost in his story. He tells one particular story about Catherine's near death.
And all of a sudden, she goes, bright red spray, boo, and this thing, and this flop, a giant fish plopped onto her robe, blood everywhere. Jack, she's dead. They came in, these big guys.
With fish coming up, it is wonderful stuff that you captured.
I started saying this. We never thought we'd have a theatrical release. That was purely because we just happened to be talking to a booker about maybe doing an Academy run that one of our backers wanted us to do. I was flattered, but I'm thinking, really? We could spend that money elsewhere. But but somebody said, yeah, you should do this. Okay. So we started talking to a booker, and all of a sudden David passes away, and there's this massive amount of interest all over the country for people to see this movie. And so I got the experience that I can't tell you how much I value, of going to so many of these screenings with real live audiences, seeing this movie and making changes, from the beginning to the end, trimming this down, trimming that, getting something a little clearer, improving this section, maybe mix that down a little bit. But having the same reaction from people, real people. And one of the things that I would say to them at these Q&As afterward was, I did not write this story. I did not create these characters. I did not script their dialogue. I just put it together, and I'm not denigrating my involvement. I'll take all the accolades and success that we can. But, you know, unlike my first film where I wrote it, directed, and I'm in it, it's the true story about me and all these songs that I wrote. I can talk about this movie moving me. The audience is moving at the moments that I've been moved. And for about 6 years in this process, I could not get through a conversation where anything that touched me, I would start to just cry. Not bawling, crying, and not crying because I missed Catherine, because I didn't. We weren't close. That's one of the reasons why I think I was good the guy to direct this. You know, she helped me over the years. She did our first film. She got David involved in the first film. When David was looking for this guy that we all knew was good with words and was a magician for a while, because at Jack Nance's memorial, I told him about doing this act at a fair in East Bay where I was Abraxor, the evil magician, and I built a gallows and they would hang me, and then people were booing me. This dark magician. So, you know, years later, he comes back at me, or 2 years later, whatever it was. And you know, he has a dark, mysterious magician in front of a red curtain, like at the Mayfair Music Hall, with a little booth up there. And there's swing music, which is what I gave him on the book on tape when I gave him the Zigzag book on tape. It's beautiful. It was just, I felt that he'd seen me. He'd got me. And I have told this story, but it's worth retelling as quick as I can. He called me on a Friday, said he'd been looking for something for 30 years from me, and I was flattered. And he said, I want you to play this evil kind of, not, he never used evil, but kind of dark, mysterious magician. And I said, send me the script. He said, no, but I'll send you the sides, Richard. And so he sends me 7 pages. And but on that phone call, he says, can you go into costuming tomorrow? Yeah, okay, I'll do that. Call this number. Great. And I'll see you Monday morning. Great. It's Friday afternoon. And he says, oh, and by the way, I kind of wanted it in French and Spanish too. And I'm like, okay, well, here's my home number. Call me tomorrow and we'll get you a translator. And I said, okay. So I called him the next morning and didn't answer, left a message. So I called a French speaking pal and a Spanish speaking pal, and she and he gave me, you know, options for each line, mostly verbatim stuff. You know, I think no I banda is pretty self-evident, right? And now the 8-page script was 21 pages, right? And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got to memorize all this in 3 different languages. And what am I, wait a minute. And I've said this before, I don't know where I got the temerity, but I did, to say, maybe I should just sort of arrange it when it's English and when it's Spanish and when it's French and when it repeats and when, just, you know, like Billy Strayhorn on a piece of Duke Ellington music. You know, the music's there. It's beautiful. The rhythm of what he wrote is beautiful, but I can play with it in these 3 languages, and I could learn that. And it was only 10 pages, and so I learned that. And I got to the set and I handed him the 21 pages and I said, here it is in 3 languages. And here's kind of a version of it. You want to see that? And he said, yes. And that was it. He got it.
No hay banda. There is no band. Il n'est pas d'orchestra. This is all a tape recording. No hay banda, and yet we hear a band. If we want to hear a clarinet, listen. Un trombone à coulisse.
I was going to ask you what it was like to work with him on a set, and it seems like he's open to ideas, in your case, combining, you picking the ones, as long as he connects with it.
He's totally open. He's the greatest audience I've ever had. And I think you would find that other actors say the same thing, not just director, but audience, just somebody who, when you do something that works, that he's looking for, or that works, that you're looking for with him, there's nothing better than making David happy on a set. It's just a wonderful feeling. It just feels seen. One of the great experiences of my life, and that's saying a lot because I've had a really interesting life, was being in a shopping mall in Frankfurt, Germany on July 7th, I think it was.
You're already way ahead of me, too, with interesting stories. I have not been in a shopping mall in Frankfurt, Germany. But yes, continue.
4 days before or something, it was a Tuesday, I had sent David the project. At that point, it was in the form of a 3-part miniseries, 3.5 hours long. And I sent it to him. I flew into Amsterdam, rented a truck, and then spent the next 4 days getting to know this person that I had been communicating with. Went to Frankfurt for a day with this group of people, and was in a shopping mall, and got a call from Michael Burrell, David's assistant, saying, David would like to talk to you about the movie. And I'm in a shopping mall in Frankfurt. My headphone wire is like, I gotta, okay, hold on a second.
Yeah, hold on, wait.
I know at our malls, you have a back area where you can get to the store from the back, right? They lock up the front, and then the employees go out the back. There's a corridor that is a back door to all these stores. And I see this corridor. So I'm like frantically getting my headset together, and I'm going down this corridor to find some quiet so I can talk to David Lynch about my movie. And I go too far into the corridor. I drop the call. So now I'm like, oh my God, right? And I run out halfway down, and I try it again, and Michael's there, and everything's fine. And David gets on the line, and I cried for 20 minutes because he talked to me for 20 minutes about what worked for him, why he was, and it wasn't just his stuff. It wasn't this. It was the stuff that I didn't know anybody would get.
You talked a bit about this film. You didn't write it, right? I think you had said it. You didn't write it. You weren't connected to Catherine, but I can see what I imagine your fingerprints kind of all over this thing. It's a mix of new footage and existing footage, but even in like some of the archival segments, you're making choices in your edits. There's movements, there's zooms. Where do you see like your voice in a documentary or a film about someone else? Like, do you prefer to fade into the background like an observer, or have more of yourself come through?
It's an interesting question. I've had a long voiceover career, right? So, one of the first assumptions you might make is, well, why take out all the questions then? Why take yourself out of it? You've got this voice. You could ask these questions. You could tell the story by asking the questions and then having people do it. Why find ways to have the people ask the questions? Why do that? And partly it was ego. I didn't want to be attacked for doing that,
Mm-hmm.
Promoting my voiceover career. But also the video biography business, which I was telling you about earlier, we immediately cut out the questions, because what was important was finding the moments of truth of what people were saying, right? And the questions really are, I think it plays as a conversation amongst those people. And I know I'm there. I'm there with an enormous number of choices. I'm asking you what I'm directing. I'm taking you. I'm a director. I directed this, and I took at Jake Blue Note's suggestion. I took a writing directing credit because the thing is so constructed, right, in terms of how the story is told. There's so many selective choices that you were asking about before. How do you choose, right? So many selective choices, especially taking it down from a 3.5 hour linear miniseries to this version of the story, which captures the essence of that. there's so many choices. There's so many, and I guess to be honest with you, you have to please yourself. You have to have a passion about what this is. I want to see, this is how you tell that. I can take input. I'm pretty good at taking input. I'm an actor. I taking direction from brilliant people and idiots. You take it and you process, and ultimately, you take what you value and you leave the rest and you move forward and you trust yourself. The great artists, and I include David Lynch in that easily, have a deep sense of surety about what it is they want to do and how they want to do it.
One of my favorite parts is a scene that's very early on where you take us into the woods, and it's like we're going into this place of mystery, and with each step, you see Catherine getting older, and then suddenly we're pulled back and she's getting younger, and it's like in that one scene the film reveals itself. Was that an idea that came to you in the editing room, or were you like, okay, I'm going to do this structure where we're going to sort of bounce back and forth between the end and her life leading up into that point?
It was a very interesting process to get to those choices, right? The first thing was I knew David. Again, David was not the first interview that was shot. There were a couple of interviews that Bill Hougsey shot. I was there for a couple of them. But it was the first interview I shot. And one of the things that David wanted and that I wanted was to make sure that this wasn't about only the log lady. I know Catherine, the log lady, right? You're going to learn about the log lady, but Catherine, who she was, and it was so dense and so complicated. I did not watch season 3 when it came out because I did not want to be influenced by Twin Peaks any more than I was already from just being a normal human being who watched the first season and a little bit of the second 30, 40 years ago, right? 25 years ago. So the first thing was to find out her story. Nobody had it, right? Nobody knew everything. There were 4 aspects of her life so powerful. One, we all knew her from on camera as the log lady, right? But she was also behind the camera. To find out about that and learn that she'd worked with Cassavetes and she did Star Trek Wrath of Khan. She pulled focus. Star Trek. This is like one of the, it's sort of roundly considered, I believe, to be the best of the Star Trek movies to this day, right? And Nicholas Meyer was fascinating about her and just the vibe that she had, who she was, how she operated. So you had her on camera, behind the camera. You had her on stage, right? 22 seasons of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. She was a dynamo in that community, right? But she was also converted from Catholicism to Judaism and married a rabbi. And he became the rabbi in Ashland, Oregon, at this very, very powerful temple. And she became the rabbi's wife, what's called the Rebbitzin, which in at least the Reformed Jewish temple tradition is the outreach person to everyone in the community, knows who's sick, keeps the rabbi's diary, sort of runs things like running a home, except it's a congregation of hundreds and hundreds of people, right? So she had these 4 distinctive areas of personality. And, how do you even approach that? How do you even, most people didn't know one from the other. So the first year and a half, 2 years, it took us to get all the interviews, 65, I think, all told, told us, enough information to be able to put a timeline together. Because prior to that, there were people very close to her, but they missed certain aspects of her life entirely, right? We had a great deal of help from her niece, Constant, who was just amazing. And from Jenny Sullivan, from everybody. Everybody was so wanting to tell this story because they all knew how unique she was. It wasn't like, hey, did you guys know that what are you talking about? Did we know? I mean, there was a little bit of that sort of slap me up the side of the head every once in a while. Who the fuck are you? You didn't know her that well. I knew Captain. I know Catherine. And then they would tell me, and I was all ears, and we were all camera and mic. And each of their stories is fascinating. These are amazing people, know amazing people. Anybody look, I know David Lynch. I know him since I'm 20 years old. I worked on 3 different projects with him. The best film I ever was in was Mulholland Drive. The best performance I ever did on film, the most unique performance was was that. The best film I ever directed, he's in, and gave me what we had on the set of Mulholland Drive, that immediate trust and understanding of what I was doing and what he wanted from me because of our previous shared history of him watching me perform, right? That intimacy, that just immediate trust and joy of doing something was amazing on Mulholland Drive. It stayed with me all these years. I haven't done any acting since, because I kind of went, let me do my writing music thing, my film thing for a while, but I don't need to do it. I did something that I needed to do, and he gave me that opportunity. That same vibe was there for the entire interview with him that day. He was so open. He was so happy to talk about Catherine. And I felt he heard me. I knew I could convince him that I was hearing.
Yeah.
And I did. And Donna was there too that day. And we just, it was great.
Jumping back to Eraserhead, because I want to talk, if you can share the story about the birth of the log girl.
Yes. And I'll give you a little preface to it. Fred Elms in the longer interviews talks about, David talks about as well, the fact that they only shot at night. The Beverly Hills Parks and Recreation Service would be gardening in the Doheny Mansion, this wonderful property in Beverly Hills where the American Film Institute started, right? They would be gardening during the day, so you couldn't shoot during the day. So everybody would gather around 5 o'clock at night and they'd shoot all night. And Fred Elms talks about how Catherine was always on. She was always entertaining people with a story, keeping, through the cold nights or the long nights when David was repainting a chair for the 30th time and they all had to wait, or something of that nature. That Catherine was the entertainer. And David, as you know in the film, says just right out that no one was helping more. Catherine was number one right-hand man on that film. It established their relationship forever. She grew up in Disneyland and playing characters on the street, interacting with real people in character is a very unique kind of performance art that very few people learn to do. She did it beautifully. It's one of the reasons that Twin Peaks survived 25 years and to be brought back is that she traveled the world carrying the log, being the log lady and being Catherine, being able to play both characters at the same time. So that performance, that entertainment, I suspect, is what gave David the idea of a character. And he describes it in the film as being a stupid idea, but it was fun to think about it. It's charming. No one thinks of David Lynch as having a stupid idea, but he does because he's just a real guy. And I think that he describes it, I have Mark Frost saying the same lines, I'll test my log with every branch of knowledge was the idea of this thing, that the log lady, and it was going to be the log girl at the time, by the way, the log girl would have a son and she would take the son and the log around. David tells the story about the dental office and the log, putting the log in the dental chair with a little blue bib, I don't know if it's blue, a little bib around its neck so that she can instruct her son on what's happening to the log. The log is like a surrogate to teach the son, was this crazy idea that they would think about. I can't imagine. David talks about in the interview, in the larger interview, not in the film, unfortunately, he talks about old friends and how when you get together, you talk about the old times that nobody knows, There's this great line that I'll probably work into a promo now that I'm thinking about it, where David does Jack Lynch. They'll never believe it, right? David doing Jack is something to behold. I gotta tell you, because Jack was so specific about who he was, right? Just how he came across Jack. Jack was a character. Indeed.
That's what's so interesting too about when you think about Twin Peaks, first season of Twin Peaks. Like Lynch is coming off Blue Velvet. He is a beloved filmmaker. You've got The Elephant Man as well. But for Catherine and Jack, like, they're in his first film together. They're old friends. So, like, the dynamic that happens on set, and you have great interviews with the cast talking about that, because for them, I've got a job, it's going to be on a TV show, you're nervous, this is the guy that's the creator of the show. There's a hierarchy. But when you watch two old friends like that working and creating art, it's like it's a different world. And watching the two of them interact and hearing how people commented on how they interacted, like I love that relationship. You're very lucky to have connected to that when you did as well. And like it's great to hear. I like those bits of info in your film.
It was a very warm environment. Again, for me, I remember at least one party up there. A lot of people. I remember going out on the deck. We now we have that apartment.
Oh yeah.
Jake Blue Note, who's, again, I've mentioned him a bunch of times. He's in our campaign video playing music. He's one of our composers. He's one of the producers of a lot of the music in the film. He lives in that apartment. And I remember, so I've hung out there. We shot there for the film. The actual sequence of her, throwing up her stomach is right there in that same place where it happened, right? Interestingly enough.
So you shoot everything, right? You get the whole chronology, and then you've got from her beginnings with her father being involved with Disneyland and all of that stuff, which was great to learn, to the end. When did you make the decision that the stuff was going to be intercut? Because there's also a wonderful editing choice that you make where Catherine is promoting a play while you're cutting with Miriam Laub. I think I'm pronouncing her name. I don't know. I didn't know her before, but there's like such goodness and energy coming off that woman. But she's literally telling the story of when Catherine finds out about this terrible diagnosis. At the same time, you're showing Into the Woods, which of course you've got the Into the Woods, like it's beyond perfect. Like when did you find that? Was that when you were going from, hey, it's 3 parts, I got to do 1 part here? Like, did that become the spine of the film?
A step in there first. So I shoot 2 years worth of interviews, right? I got 65 interviews, right? The first thing I do is watch each interview and select the statements, cut out the questions, just make a new sequence. An hour and 20 minutes is now 45 minutes of just statement of those people, right? Maybe the camera's zooming in on them a little bit, and maybe it's not. It depends. I didn't have the money to hire consistent camera people, so who was available, they gave me the best they could give me, and right, I made do, right? Just, limitations, right? So I did that with every one of the 65 interviews. Now I had it all. Then I sat down and I watched everything of season 1 of Twin Peaks, everything of season 2 of Twin Peaks, everything of season 3 of Twin Peaks, and everything of the Log Lady intros. Then I sat down and I watched it again, and I made selects of everything of season 1, everything of season 2, 3, and the Log Lady intros into a new sequence. So I had this arsenal of stuff that I thought related, that all the characters were shown, and I could use to introduce a character or to play up an idea, because Twin Peaks is a thing of rich in ideas. It's rich in concepts and ideas and relationships. So you have just so much to work with, right? Knowing I was going to purchase a certain amount of it, right? Then I went through and I pieced together this chronology. We literally made a timeline of what happened in her life. Then I made a cut of, I broke it into 29 different steps of her life and a bunch of sort of general categories. So it's like 48 different bins, we call them in Avid, right? Just like different files that had these subjects in them. One might have been Disneyland. One might have been more thematic, might have been freedom, or might have been circus theater company, right? And I went through each of the interviews, and when anyone in an interview said anything that hit any one of those 40 categories, or if they said something new, I'd make a new category. I dropped it in. So now I had all of these, this is taking years, right? Yeah. I'm on my own. I can't afford an assistant.
Yeah, and you're right. I mentioned that in the beginning, but you are literally every part of it.
Yes.
Essentially. I mean, there's certainly other people helping you along, but you are editing the film. You're shooting the film. You're going through hundreds of hours of stuff. But yeah, continue.
So once we get that, it comes out to, for some reason, odd shaped, odd time, 9 parts. That's 6.5 hours long. But you can sit down and watch the story be told chronologically by her friends redundantly, certainly at times, very redundantly, but not often, without any illustration whatsoever. Meanwhile, I'm frantically collecting photographs, getting rights to plays, finding out, what I have, what's possible. At that point, I had a decision to make. I knew I could do a 3-part miniseries easy. I knew there's enough story to tell here and that I could do some bridging gaps, between, sort of recap things. It was the middle of COVID. The big networks were buying miniseries a lot. There was a lot of money involved, and I was I was deep in debt and was being supported by, the generosity of our backers, right? Or I could cut it into a feature, which might be more easily sellable, right? And might be more lucrative in the long run. This is what I was told. And I knew that I could tell the story as a feature. I didn't know how at that point. And I figured, if I ever want both, I got to cut the miniseries first, because you can't cut a feature and then go back and add a bunch of stuff in to fill it out. It's the wrong approach. So I decided to cut the linear 3-part, tell the stories that I thought were powerful and tell them tight, and, use music and the thrust of the people and the thrust of the story and the ticking clock of her life. Is she going to live long enough for David to do this? In the middle of the fucking thing, he walks away in the middle of the damn thing. That's so dramatic. It's like perfect structure, right? And then comes back. I knew that I had experienced from some people that I really cared about. I'd sent them the 3-part. They watched the first part and they really liked it, but they didn't get to the second part. And I worried that I was taking that kernel, that string that gets tighter and tighter and tighter from the minute that he says they're coming back. She finds out she's terminal, right? That string just keeps getting tighter all along the way. It gets really tight when he walks away, and then he comes back and it's tighter and tighter all the way to the end, right? And you don't want to break that. And I thought, when we experienced the slowdown you talked about in the video industry, where they weren't buying, and maybe I could sell it, but for how much, is not going to be worth what it could be worth. I also realized something else. In 2001, when we came back from Cannes, I decided that I wasn't going to take a couple of offers I had on I Don't Know Jack to distribute them, because I was told by people, you get that $25,000, they'll never send you another nickel. You take that advance, you'll never see it in the international distribution of documentaries. Come on, right? So I decided I was going to sell it online, and I was going to sell my film 7 Years Zigzag online. But this was in 2001, right? And there was no Facebook. There was no way to target an audience. There was no way to meet people online in that way. We came up with the Had to Be Made Film Festival. We went to the independent video stores across the country with DVD film festivals. We took over the Video Software Dealers Association's filmmaker program. We were kicking ass, and then DVD just completely fell apart, and Blockbuster died, and I had to move on. I wasn't able to find the audience and the market. And I worried, if I self-distribute Catherine, am I going to find the same thing? And then I realized, in 30 days, we raised $292,000 on Kickstarter. We were able to find the people who wanted to see this movie with a 1 minute, 2 minute, promo telling what it's about, with a little piece of David Lynch talking in it, right? And the fact that I had some credibility as the magician from Mulholland Drive, and David sitting there, and it looks interesting, and the story is compelling. You hear the story, you go, what? She did what? Right? So if we can find that audience in 30 days, raise that much money, that means I know after the last 5 months, 6 months of seeing this movie around the country and talking to people of the caliber that you've seen this, you understand this film, I'm talking to an intelligent person who loves my movie. It's our movie. It's the movie. It's its own thing, and it works. It plays. It's there. I know that from being in the audiences and crying and laughing with them. And so now it's just a matter of, do we do it well? So we've decided to release our film on the 26th of August, which is Women's Equality Day.
Yeah, which should be today, right? Because we are. Yes, there is no band.
It is all a recording.
It is an illusion.
On August 26th here today, Women's Equality Day, when women got the vote, Um, and probably the best thing that ever happened to men. And we're releasing it on a really unique platform that was set up by one of the people in our film, um, Annie Lundgren of Joma Films, through Shopify, sets up a streaming system that you don't have to sign up for. You don't have to join Vimeo or Hulu or YouTube or anything. You can just, if you want to stream it, you can go right online and stream it. We're in pre-order phase up until today, and now you can come right now and stream this movie.
Is there any plans to bring, I don't know, Jack as well into this platform?
Probably a couple of weeks after the opening after today, we plan on putting up, I don't know, Jack and 7 Years Zigzag, trying to come up with a good package for the two of them together, make it possible for people who are already digging what we're doing to be able to do more. We're also talking, and I can't commit to doing this, but it's something that I really want to do, and I think that there might be a big market for it. If your audience has a feeling about it, I'd love to hear about it, is the idea of setting up a Patreon where we could go into each of the full interviews, that if you're a member, every month you get another full interview, because you can see the questions, you can see the whole process of interviewing each of the people that are, in the film. Will release those interviews to our Patreon clients. And that may be part of the project I was talking about, History of Cool, where we set up a profile of Catherine by isolating and tagging and having people watch it and tag the things that are said about her in interesting ways, so that it becomes a searchable database of what would Catherine do, and searchable database about her and her life, as part of the History of Cool project, which we'll talk about in another time.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really interesting. Physical release of the film planned or not at this time? Like a Blu-ray or something?
We go a little bit by what we promised the public when we did the campaign. And we were supposed to reach a certain number, which we didn't reach, in order to guarantee that we were going to do any kind of physical release. But we have DVDs still of Jack and Zigzag.
Okay.
And I believe, it's really going to be just, at this point, just the market demand. If people want them, we'll make them and put them out. So I'm assuming that it will, but it will depend on the success of the campaign that we're doing right now.
Yeah. I really do hope it's very successful, first because it's a great film. But if it gets to the point where you can do a Blu-ray or a physical release, Twin Peaks fans generally are big into collecting and holding physical things. And I think you'd have no problem earning back whatever, cost you would have to produce it.
Yeah. I think that's a very good idea.
So August 26th, right, is when it's going to be available. And is there a website location?
That is today. iknowcatherine.com. You can go there today and order this film. You'll be able to get Jack and Zigzag down the line. There's some wonderful merchandise. And I speak about that not because I think a black mug is a beautiful thing, but what's on the black mug, the art that's been put on the T-shirts and the mugs and things that are for sale in the shop is something that should be mentioned. Our art director, Alexandra Shuran, is a Ukrainian refugee from the war. We met her before the war started and hired her for her beautiful, you know her work, all the maps and the backgrounds of black backgrounds with a pastel kind of marker line on them.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved all that map work. You also have a very striking poster.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's really good to hear, because the poster is an evolution. And this is a true story, right? Peter Dom, who runs Welcome to Twin Peaks, which is a very large, influential website about Twin Peaks, and is, had a huge impact on keeping Twin Peaks alive and the revitalization of it over the years. He approached me when he saw this piece I had made to get David's approval of going forward with the Kickstarter, and really played a tremendous part in getting us noticed and to the right people so that we could raise our money on Kickstarter initially. And the poster that he did was this beautiful yellow background with a silhouette of the log lady with the red glasses. And on our poster now it's blue, right? And very, very powerful. But the reason we changed it is that within 6 months after our campaign, with this silhouette of black against a yellow background with glasses, Curb Your Enthusiasm put billboards all over television and all over the country with Larry David in a silhouette with glasses against a yellow background. Right. And I just felt like if we stayed with that visual metaphor and look, that too many people would say, oh, they're copying Larry David, and it would really piss
Well, I think it ended up where it needed to be, but that's funny. Yeah, so you have events coming up. Yep.
Yes, let me tell you the events. So coming up right away and leaving, I guess, tomorrow morning for North Bend in Washington, right outside of Seattle, where at the North Bend Theater, where they had the premiere of Fire Walk with Me in '92, which started the whole Twin Peaks Film Festival. Harry Goaz and Dana Ashbrook and Michael Horse are coming. They're doing an event called Behind the Badge, and they're going to put their hands and feet, maybe in handcuffs, I don't know what, in concrete out in front of the North Bend Theater. It's an event, and since we had done a sneak peek, their first screening that anybody ever saw this film in the public was a sneak peek at North Bend. We're coming back, and on Saturday we're going to have a public screening of I Know Catherine, the Log Lady, for people up in North Bend.
Oh, very lucky people up in North Bend. I know one of the listeners has told me that they are going, so that is good to know. I am very jealous. I've not been up that way, but if you're getting this, although if they're hearing this, did it already happen?
This was a wonderful event that we took place on August 15th.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and you missed it, and I can't believe you missed it. And the things that happened, oh my gosh.
Oh God, it was great. Yeah. We'll save it for another time. I'll tell you the story another time. All right, but coming up is the Mahoning Drive-In Theater in Pennsylvania. They're amazing because they asked me a few years ago. They had Rebecca Del Rio there. And either Rebecca or Faye Dorsey, who runs the Mahoning, reached out to me and asked if, as a magician, I would introduce Rebecca Del Rio singing, Llorando, her song. And they just do great. They sent me all this really nice swag, this bag and great T-shirts with this. The graphics are beautiful. They're really wonderful. And so on September 5th and 6th, Ray Wise, the Fuck You Tammy Band, and Tessa Fire Walk with Me, who I think will be there. I'll be there to introduce, I think, both Mulholland Drive on one night and our film, I Know Catherine, the Log Lady, on another night. And I might even sing that song. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. And there's a lot of people are going. It's I think, a big, important event for the world of Twin Peaks and
yeah, you should definitely check that out. That sounds amazing. Two fantastic films.
Got one more coming up. I'm sorry. I think it's important. The Gathering of Angels in the UK. This is a huge event. It's put on by Lindsay Bowden and the UK Twin Peaks Festival that ran for 10 years. Catherine was instrumental in helping her get off the ground. And this is not about Twin Peaks. It's about David Lynch. It's a gathering of the angels. Sabrina Sutherland is going to be there. Krista Bell, I've just been informed, is going to sing live. I'm going to be there. Catherine is going to have its UK premiere there. We've saved it. We turned down tours of UK so we could save the date to be there for that event, because I think it's going to be a great event for just, worldwide Twin Peaks and Lynch fandom. Can I just wrap my end of this up just by saying that what makes this movie moving, all of us, is that it's about life and real people and commitment and living honestly and well, and what it means to be a friend, and what it means to come through for a friend, and what it means to value our choices and the way we live our lives. I've been interviewed by a lot of people over the last few months, and I'm very grateful for every one of those interviews. They've all been really interesting and really fun. But sometimes you get someone who has their own insight into their own life, and the questions become penetrating, and new material comes up because of the way and the questions asked and the lines of thought that are pursued. And so I very much appreciate the time and thought you've given this, and I appreciate your comments about this film. I share it with you. These people, this story is amazing, and we should all see it, because it teaches us about how we can live a little bit better.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. This was a great conversation. I'd love to have you back for some other reason in the future, perhaps. And I wish you well. You're on the promotion machine that is not going to let you go. I hope you get rest and you get some time to yourself without, because it's a lot of talking. I mean, I'm sure This is probably not the only interview you've done this week, maybe not even this day. But I appreciate your time.
What a pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
It was great. I feel like I touched on most stuff. I could talk to you for like another 3 hours. I have a feeling there's a movie about you waiting to happen as well.
Thank you for listening to the Meanwhile podcast with Dan Johnson and Eric Grissom. If you would like to support the Meanwhile podcast, join our Patreon. It's available right now. You can sign up, and for just a few dollars a month, you can keep this show going, and you can get access to some exclusive podcasts and some secret stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else. So if you'd like to join, go to ericgrissom.com/meanwhile and look for the Patreon link. If you like our show, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're hearing this now. Meanwhile is produced by Eric Grissom and Where's My Robots? The Meanwhile theme song is written and performed by Paul Finn and Evening Pines. If you want to let us know what you thought of the show, you can reach Dan at danjnj.com, both on the web and on Blue Sky. Eric can be found on Blue Sky at ericgrissom.com, which is also his website. It's also me, right? That's weird. We'll see you again. And in the meantime, be good.
Listen to the sounds.
Meanwhile.